hey, I'm a company that has a DFARS 7012 clause, but I looked for and I didn't find, documents or stuff that's marked controlled unclassified information. Does that mean that I'm off the hook? I don't need to comply with NIST 800-171 or DFARS because basically I couldn't find CUI. So Regan and Stuart, could you tell us a little bit about the CUI discovery process and clarify for such an organization if they're indeed off the hook?
Yeah, so I was just addressing one of the questions, which is a great question and coincides with this. There's some fundamental issues here, folks. One is that CUI is developed or received in performance of a contract. And that CUI falls underneath the DFARS 7012 covered defense information definition. There are two components to that definition. It's very important that you know this. The first component is that it's marked or otherwise identified in the contract, which is the appropriate thing to do according to DoD policy. But the other component to that definition is the second part. And it is one or the other, not and. The or part is that it is received, developed, transmitted, stored, and secured in performance of on behalf of the government in performance of the contract. That means that the government recognizes that you are going to receive information that is not properly marked or otherwise identified in the contract. It is received and developed in performance of the contract. And 32 CFR specifically states that if information qualifies as CUI, whether it's marked or unmarked, then it must be protected according to the requirements. So you as an authorized holder are responsible for meeting all the CUI requirements according to the category definition related to the contract performance when it's received or developed, and most organizations will develop far more CUI than they receive. So it's vital that you know that these requirements apply to you. And so when you go through the CUI discovery process, remember that's going to define the entire organization, the scope of the assessment. Remember what individuals have been authorized to be an authorized user, what devices will be authorized to process, store, transmit CUI and performance of the contract, and so on and so forth. So that CUI discovery process begins with understanding what do we do in performance of the contract, and what information do we need to receive to execute the contract, and what information that we have to develop in performance of the contract, and what's the traceability throughout the organization, whether it's in the business workflow, whether it's in the design and manufacturing process, or whether it's in the sharing of that information as we receive it, or the sharing of the information down to our suppliers in performance of the contract.
Right. And then that to Sanjeev's comment is you're not off the hook. You'll receive information that is not marked. You'll see information that may be mismarked. If you ask a contracting officer, the contracting officer may not have the right answer. And so it really ends up being your responsibility to be able to determine what is the CUI you're receiving, what is the CUI you're creating, and you have an obligation to appropriately mark it. But don't trust that what you receive is, if it's not marked, it's not CUI, or in some cases, even if it is marked, that it is CUI.